well. Now I call on Ghada Mohamed. Oh, thank you, Ghada, please. Um, so Ghada will present us the communication absolutely new in type, the anthropomorph. Oh, sorry, my diction is really bad. The anthropomorphized. It was possible. Signs on the monuments of King Tutankhamun. So Dr. Ghada Mohamed obtained her PhD degree in Egyptology from the University of Bonn in Germany. And the topic of her PhD thesis, and correct me if my translation is wrong, Ghada, please, is about the sketches of women tasks, work, something like that. You can explain us later. My German is not so good. So she is currently a lecturer at the Egyptology department of the Faculty of Archaeology in Cairo. So Ghada, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this very interesting event for giving me this opportunity to participate today, to present a few, I would say, results from my dissertation in Bonn, and also to get to know the results of the work of other colleagues. So it's a really great opportunity. I'm talking today about the anthropomorphized signs on the monuments of King Tutankhamun. So, the ancient Egyptian civilization is considered an image civilization par excellence. This concept is clearly evident since the earliest times of the Egyptian history, in particular in the ancient Egyptian language, whose signs are inspired by the surrounding environment in the first place. The purpose of my presentation today is to highlight the anthropomorphized signs on the monuments of King Tut and to demonstrate the tradition and innovation in this form of sign after the Amarna period. So, first of all, I would like to give an overview about the concept of anthropomorphizing signs or hieroglyphs in ancient Egypt, and also the main categories of the anthropomorphized signs. Then I will discuss briefly, of course, the anthropomorphized signs on the monuments of King Tut. I have today 5 case studies, and then I will end with the conclusion. So, it should be pointed out, first of all, that the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs or the sacred writing were attributed to a divine source by the Egyptians themselves, namely the gods. The hieroglyphs were the gods' words or the writing of the gods' words and were considered to be living beings with divine and magical power. It is that they can communicate, or they were more than just a communication system, and they can have their own power and can independently react or interact. A unique scene from the tomb of Neferma'at in my tomb can explain this concept as follows. It says, he, Neferma'at, is the one who made his gods, it is hieroglyphs, in a script which cannot be erased. Describing the signs as gods mean ipso facto that the signs are living entities endowed with power. In the later book of Tut, the living nature of the hieroglyphs was also emphasized by mentioning that they interacted and responded to their creator. The signs revealed their forms, he called to them, and they answered to him. This response was, in fact, the cry of the newborn signs, which signals their birth as living characters with their own features, images, and phonetic values. This evidence emphasizes their ability to communicate by being able to hear, speak, and understand. The ancient Egyptians went further and provided many hieroglyphic signs with human attributes so they can they will be capable of acting and interacting independently. From this standpoint, the concept of anthropomorphizing the hieroglyphic signs emerged. The term anthropomorphism is derived from the Greek anthropos, means human, and morph means form or shape. and is defined as an interpretation of what is not human or personal in terms of human or personal characteristics. From the earliest times of ancient Egyptian culture, special emphasis was placed on ascribing human characteristics and features to animals and objects, and in return, on granting human beings animal attributes. Here, anthropomorphism played an extremely important role for the Egyptians, in which it enabled them to understand the world around them and thus served a specific purpose. In addition to being granted life, the human characteristics in form and/or behavior are transferred to deities, animals, inanimate objects, and the like. Thus, the sign turns from an inactive static element to an active dynamic object and act and interact effectively in a bigger context, like humans. And so it's logic to assume that this form, or the anthropomorphized form, was applied and shaped from a human perspective. Animalization, on the other hand, it is the design of human with animal characteristics and attributes, is also considered to be highly important manifestation to support the legitimacy of rulers when kings are compared visually and textually with mighty animals and provided with animal qualities. Early examples of this kind of sign can already be found, like here, these examples. Yeah. In the bowls with human feet, there are about 4 examples from such bowls. From the Ghada period, the God standards on the battlefield palette, and the click beetle with 2 human arms holding the was scepter. From the time of Narmer, the anthropomorphized catfish at the king smiting the enemies and the goddess pot on the top of his well-known palette in Cairo are also good examples for this distinctive form. This sign, with other elements of the scene, serve as a medium of social communication and play a very important role to deliver a message to the observer. The anthropomorphized hieroglyphs can be categorized in 3 main groups. This group contains the anthropomorphized, the first group, signs with a phonetic value. This group contains signs or anthropomorphized signs that are mainly used as phonetic characters in a text in textual evidence. These signs are in Gardner's list as well as in the literal lists and have phonetic values. They can also be preceded or followed by phonetic complements. The second group, the living hybrid creatures, this group includes the anthropomorphized signs that represent non-human living being with human limbs, characteristics, or behavior. The third, we have here some examples. The bowbird, the rakhid bird, snakes with arms and legs in the books of the underworld. The third group, on which I did my PhD, this category contains inanimate objects which are anthropomorphized not only by granting life, human characteristics and attributes, but also by adding human limbs to the sign itself. The characters on these two groups play or appear as visual components in various representations, as well as in 3-dimensional works of art, and stand independently or as a group in 2 or 3 signs in general. In my dissertation, I have examined essentially 11 case studies of the anthropomorphized inanimate signs, and I hope it will be published soon. Among these case studies are Ankh, Jed, Was, Imentet, Yaptet, and the Wajat eye. So, starting with the signs or the anthropomorphized signs on the tomb from the tomb of King Tut, despite their limited number, Tutankhamun's fascinating instances of anthropomorphized signs displays blended variety in form and function. The first example is depicted on the well-known gilded wooden ostrich hunt fan. It was found between the two innermost shrines within the burial chamber of the king. Remains of white and brown ostrich feathers were also found, which have been obviously fitted alternatively to the 30 holes pierced in the palm of the fan. Both sides of the fan are decorated with ostrich hunt near Heliopolis, which represent the king riding his chariot and shooting arrows at the scared ostriches on one side, and the return of the king with his hunted prey carried by bearers on shoulders on the other side. Behind Tutankhamun, on the first side is an anthropomorphized Ankh, which is provided with two simple arms and walking legs and imitates the human behavior. The hands hold a fan and wears bracelets in its wrist. Distinguished in this case are the feet, which are given a strong visual impression of running and movement by representing the heel of the back foot lifted slightly upwards. Despite the similar content, this interesting foot detail has not been represented in earlier examples, as both feet rest steady and horizontally on the ground line, as shown, for instance, on the chariot of King Thutmose IV. The earliest evidence of the humanized Ankh-on-Dwas as fan bearers or standard bearers are dated to the reign of King Djoser and are found on his 6 limestone panels under both the step pyramid and the Thoth tomb, on which the king is depicted performing the Hebsed rituals. From this point of time onwards, they became a royal privilege that continued until the Greco-Roman period and were used in various contexts other than the said festival. Furthermore, the presence of these signs extended to other royal royal contexts, as they are essentially associated with the king himself, not with the activity he performs. In ancient Egypt, fans are fundamentally connected with royalty and high prestige. They were used to call the king while performing his duties and provide him with fresh air and shade. Above all, air is an important element in creation, although it's invisible, since without it, no living being can live. This symbolism explains the representations of Ankh sign holding the fans behind the king, and the accompanying text actually is confirming this concept by stating, may all protection and life be behind or around him. The second case study from the monuments of King Tut is a gold sheet applique. Another similar anthropomorphized life sign holding the fan behind Tutankhamun is found on one of the king's gold sheet applique, but with few differences. The context in this case is the well-known smiting of the enemy, in which the king decapitates an Asian foe with the Khibish sword. Moreover, the life sign in this instance is merely provided with relatively human long arms, while the legs are absent. In addition, the accompanying text confirms again the concept of granting life by stating given life like Ray. Interestingly, the earliest evidence of the life sign holding fans behind the king is, in this context, smiting of the enemies, date back to the reign of King Mohamed III and is represented on a pictorial found in the burial of Princess Merit at Dahshur. In the New Kingdom, it became widespread in the military context and was depicted repeatedly in a more complex way. The following case study are the king's torch holders. Among the lamps and torches are from the tomb of Tutankhamun. The most unprecedented related objects are so far were found, namely the 4 bronze torch holders. These items were found by Carter on the lion couch. Here. on the line couch on the antechamber and were described by Carter as absolutely new in type. However, Carter believes that they were originally stored in a plain wooden box discovered in the northeastern. Yeah, here is the place or the photos of the Griffith Institute. Here you can see the 4 torch holders. And this is the box, which Carter believes that these torch holders are originally come from. So this box were discovered in the north, here, in the northeast corner of the treasury, with other metal implements were found in the box and placed by robbers in the antechambers after finding them and taking only the parts that they found valuable. This supported by the fact that the pieces have some missing parts. In addition, traces of a similar black resinous material on the bottom of the box in question are covering the wooden bases of the 4 candlestick holders. As a further confirmation of his hypothesis, Carter argues that the dimensions of the 4 candlestick holders correspond well with the box's capacity. Each of the 4 pieces is approximately 23 centimeters tall and consists of a bronze angle sign with 2 human arms set on a wooden base. The arms emerge as usual from the intersection between the loop and the lower vertical part, and in this case, on each of the 4 candlesticks, the traces of the metal welding on the arms are at the crossing point are clearly visible from behind, giving an indication of the technique of producing such objects in ancient Egypt. The arms were designed separately and then attached to the crossing point of, on either side of the body of the Ankh sign in this case. According to their arm position, their arm position, the candlestick holders can be divided into 2 groups. Group A includes 2 candlesticks, or candlestick holders with cup torches. The arms in this group are aligned, opened wide, and almost at the same height. Both bend from the elbow so that the hands can enclose the torch cups. These cups were probably made of gold and filled with fat or oil, in which the wicks were floating. But apparently they were stolen by tomb robbers in ancient times. Yeah, this bowl here was made by Carter to give an impression how the actual cups looked like, but it's of course not the original one. Group B includes 2 candlestick holders with conical torches. In this group, the arms of the life signs are produced at different levels to correspond with the tubular torch and to bend flexibly around the wick holders. One piece still have its original torch with, which consists of twisted tubular linen bound by a strip of linen and inserted into a wick holder, which is made of gilded bronze. In the wick holder, slight traces of oily liquid were found, but they were not enough to be identified according to Carter. From the second torch only, we can see the gilded. Here, this was, of course, in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, and now it's transported to the GEM, so they have new numbers. This is the complete one, and from the second one, you can see only the wick holder, but of course, the torch itself is lost. The arms and the hand position in this group, the group B, is not completely new, actually, since it was already documented in the representations of anthropomorphized signs holding fans, divine standards, and holy staffs Medu Shibisi. But here, the implementation of this principle is produced in two unique three-dimensional models, which is very rare in anthropomorphized signs. Despite the small size of these pieces, above all the small dimensions of the arms and hands, no detail escaped the artist's attention, such as the fine fingers of the signs. The light that these torches provide is highly relevant to dispelling darkness in the tomb, or rather in the underworld, and thus resurrection and eternal life for the dead king will be ensured. A connection may exist between these candlesticks in chapter 137 of the Book of the Dead, which deals with the ritual of providing the light to the deceased by 4 torches. The purpose and aim of this chapter is to bring 4 torches and the eyes of Horus, which shine like ray in the horizon, to the Ka and the Ba of the deceased, and thus to guarantee the protection against the enemies. Based on the connection between chapter 137 and the relevant torch holders of Tutankhamun, it can be assumed that the purpose of these torches is essentially related to granting life and protection, and accordingly, the form of the Ankh sign corresponds to this concept very well. Humanizing the life signs allows them to both offer the torch themselves and to contribute their own symbolic significance for the benefit of the deceased. Moreover, the 4 torches can also be associated with 4 cardinal points and hence surrounding Osiris, or the king in this case, and provide him with light from all the cardinal directions. Certainly, this particular form of torch holders depicts the absolutely new in type, like described by Carter, anthropomorphized Ankh signs as a bearer of life in a unique way that has no equivalent thus far. The next case study of the anthropomorphized signs from the tomb of King Tut is represented on the in one of the alabaster vases, which were placed between 2 of the ritual beds in the antechamber. The upper part of these vases was mainly decorated symmetrically with the symbols of Upper and Lower Egypt, the unification of the 2 lands, by representing the pound lily and papyrus plants flanking the main pole of the vase. However, the lower part, which representing the base in this case, differs from one to another. The piece in question consists of 2 unevenly joined blocks of alabaster. Its base is characterized by 2 Ankh signs provided on either side with human arms growing from the intersection between the loop and the vertical lower part, and holding the wasp scepter in each hand. Unusually, the horizontal bar in both life signs entirely disappears. Here. Moreover, the arms are not in this case, are not carved separately as common, but together with the body of the sign as one piece, because of course this is alabaster, so it's a stone. He cannot make them separately and join them like in metal. But together with the body of the sign. The fine details, once more, of the hands and fingers wrapped around the scepter have been carefully executed. This composition occasionally rests on the nib sign, is frequently depicted on various ancient Egyptian sources. It can be read from the middle to both directions, left and right, as Anhuas nib, which means all life and dominion or welfare. The group of sign plays an important role as ornamental and meaningful element to give the king or the person depicted in the scene all life and dominion and welfare. The last instance I'm presenting today are the anthropomorphized signs as bearers on monuments dated to the king Tutankhamun, and I am picking only a few scenes from the Obit Festival procession on the Great Colonnade of Luxor Temple. So this involves scenes of the king here departing the palace and being met by Amun and Mut at the short ends of the Great Colonnade in Luxor Temple. The king, whose cartouches are usurped by Horemheb, is preceded by three god standards, Wubawut, the so-called Khonsu emblem, and the falcon Behdet, which are held by anthropomorphized Ankh, Was, and Ankh respectively. It can be reasonably assumed that there is a connection between certain divine standards and certain anthropomorphized signs that carry them frequently. This connection may probably arouse through the repeated arrangement of the standards as well as the anthropomorphized signs which hold them. Therefore, the sign of life, Ankh, which usually leads the group, often bears the standard of Wubawut, which often also stand on the front of the groups of standards, while the Was sign often bears the standard of Khonsu, which occasionally comes second, and so on. Other examples are included in the representations of the Obit Festival, also on the walls of the Colonnade Hall of Luxor Temple. Here, the anthropomorphized Ankh and Was, respectively, are depicted bearing the sacred staffs, Medushibisi, behind the bark of Amun in one of the episodes of the festival. This sequence is generally common in representations by representations of Egyptian festivals, which include the sacred barks of the Theban period. My study of anthropomorphized signs has shown that the carrying fans behind and standards before the king was initially implemented by both Ankh and Was. Then, starting from the reign of Queen Hatshepsut and Thutmose III, the humanized jet pillar joined both signs as a bearer of standards and sacred staffs Medu-Shibisi. The sacred staffs Medu-Shibisi usually preceded and follow the sacred bark of Amun and hardly accompany the barks of his wife and son. So get to the conclusion. It can be concluded at the end that the ancient Egyptians considered the hieroglyphic signs to be living beings with divine and magical powers of their own. Many hieroglyphic signs were anthropomorphized, usually visually and textually, and provided with human attributes in form and or behavior so that they are capable of acting and interacting independently. The humanized hieroglyphs were not space-filling elements, but components in scenes and perform certain functions. They can also replace deities, kings, and private people. As previously mentioned, the anthropomorphized Ankh and Was are first attested in the royal context in the beginning of the Old Kingdom, and over time they became a royal privilege that was maintained until the Greco-Roman period. However, this tradition was abandoned during the Amarna period, so that ordinary individuals reappear accompanying the king as fan and standard bearers. The tradition was only revived after Akhenaten's death and after restoring the old religion by the young Tutankhamun. The findings and scenes of King Tutankhamun representing the anthropomorphized signs demonstrate diversity as well as tradition and innovation of function and form. While some signs follow the earlier traditions of bearing fans, standards, and sacred staffs, others appear in completely new form and function, such as the torch holders. The dominance of the anthropomorphized Ankh sign on the monuments of King Tut is particularly noteworthy. However, it's essentially related to the task performed in the context which intended to give life to the deceased or the dead king. Finally, it should be emphasized that anthropomorphism is applied and shaped in the first place from a human perspective. And for this, I would like to end with this quotation of Xenophanes. who says, if cattle and horses or lions had hands or were able to draw with their hands and do the work that men can do, horses would draw the forms of the gods like horses, cattle like cattle, and lions like lions. And they would make their bodies such as they each had themselves. And I would like to thank you for your attention.